The Taliban are in control of Afghanistan. Low-rise jeans are back in fashion and everyone's playing Pokemon Go. So it's basically 1994. But unlike 1994, we now have social media sites and each of them are approaching the situation in Afghanistan in a different way. Let's look into why, for example, the Taliban are on Twitter and Donald Trump was removed. Quick disclaimer, I dislike both Trump and the Taliban before I get any comments about being an apologist for either. I'm not arguing for or against people or groups, I'm just looking at social media sites and how they operate. Now that's covered, let's look into it. Part 1. Why should Twitter remove the Taliban? The argument for removing the Taliban from social media depends on which side of the political spectrum you come from. If you're a conservative, you think it's mad that Trump was removed and the Taliban hasn't been. If you're on the left, you think it's mad that Trump and the Taliban both staged insurrections and the one that won got to keep their Twitter handle. But it's not that simple. You're thinking of it in terms of people and not platforms, so you need to put aside your feelings about the groups or politicians and look at the platforms themselves and the underlying issues at play. Part 2. Which sites can the Taliban use? Facebook says it's been Talibaning the organisation for years under its dangerous organisations policy. YouTube takes down all Taliban related content, and if they believe the Taliban own or operate an account, they remove that as well. Twitter said it was cool with them being on the site, but only if they obey the rules and don't get too violent. Thankfully, there are two things the Taliban are known for. The Taliban spokesperson has an active account with over 300,000 followers, and the organisation has started sharing press releases on Twitter. Will this age like milk? Even Parler took a shot at Twitter, saying that terrorists shouldn't be allowed to have free reign on social media, which is a bit like the pot calling the kettle, well, Parler. Social media sites are walking a tightrope. On the one hand, they can take a harsh stance on the Taliban and risk silencing the online presence of an entire country's government, not just a single politician. On the other hand, if they allow the Taliban to become a social media influencer, they could enable validating a terrorist regime. Part 3. Why can the Taliban use Twitter? Social media sites, much like neglectful parents, want to take the least responsibility possible. This way they can avoid legal issues and deflect. Unless Jerry Springer comes knocking, at which point they'll probably confidently take a lie detector and be shocked by the results. The Taliban are not on the US State Department's list of foreign terrorist organisations. This is the place most social media sites defer to when deciding which groups to flat out ban. They are, however, on the US Treasury's list of specifically designated global terrorists. But nobody gives a shit about that apparently. Part 4. Why should the Taliban be allowed on Twitter? If you let bad people speak, you can see them for what they are and challenge them on their views or ideologies. We all post our best bits on social media. If Hitler was alive today, I'm sure he'd be posting his paintings and not how many people he'd killed. The Taliban are no different. It's true in the past that their humble brags have included videos of beheadings, but today they seem to have shied away from that in favour of selfies and tweets about how much they've changed. This could be because they've actually changed their ways, or because this time around they've realised that videos of beheadings aren't great for advertisers, which is the user that Twitter wants to keep on side most. Who knows? This brings up another interesting question which we'll be covering later in the video. Should social media sites be able to ban people based on their offline actions? By banning Trump or the Taliban, you give social media sites more power to censor voices they don't like or want us to hear. And the last thing we need is for social media sites to be restricting speech. Twitter, and other sites, inconsistently apply their terms of service. Are they power hungry and mad? Or are they just trying to create a safe space for outside investors and marketeers by removing anything that wouldn't look great next to an advert? Who knows? Part 5. Social media censorship. Social media sites shouldn't be allowed to dictate who can and can't say things online. They have a business agenda, they're unelected, and they have a clear ideological stance. And when you have all those things, it does colour your judgment and means you can't be impartial as to what is and isn't the truth. Twitter is a private company, and they can do whatever they like within their own terms of service. They've removed the Taliban before, and now they seem to have given them a second chance, and so far they haven't broken any of Twitter's rules. But much like getting back with your ex, it's probably a bad idea to try again. If you've ever read Twitter's terms of service, you'll know how vague it is. I can't claim to have read the most up-to-date terms of service, because it does change its tune quicker than an iPod on shuffle. They make it vague on purpose, because this way they can do, say, change or ban anything they don't like. Much like the Taliban. Maybe they're beard bros. Whenever Twitter is sued, it claims to be a platform and not a publisher. This is specifically so they can avoid responsibility for removing content from the site. But in reality, they do create content through hashtags, trending topics, and fact-checking tweets. This way they get all the legal protection of a platform while acting as a publisher. They basically get to eat their cake and have it as well. Part 6. The value of news and our attention. All social networks thrive on our attention. We live in an attention economy, as ultimately all of us only have 24 hours in a day. This is the one similarity I have with Beyonce, and it fills me with joy on a daily basis that we have at least one thing in common. As a result, different social media sites walk a fine line between keeping us on the platform and keeping lies and propaganda off the platform. There's an argument that by taking away certain content from social media sites, you're taking away the ability for us to question and criticise ideas. But given how dire most social networks and the court of public opinion can be at making valued and reasoned judgments, I think it's easier for them to just take it off the site. I don't know about you, but I've not had an adult good faith conversation on Twitter since 2010. My take is we shouldn't be asking the question, should Trump or the Taliban be removed from Twitter? We need to be asking, should Twitter be allowed to make that call in the first place? And if so, what does that mean for their platform status as well as their ambiguous terms of service? Look, I'm not comfortable with Trump or the Taliban being on Twitter. I think they're wrong on every single level. But the true people in power here are the ones with the ability to silence voices and use extreme examples to gain more power to do what they want without regulation.